All right. If somebody could just let me know in the chat that you can see my screen, that would be amazing to make sure that I'm actually sharing. I'll throw the chat right there. Hopefully, y'all can see this here. And somebody just give me a thumbs up that you can see it. Perfect. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Ralph. All right. So we're going to talk about red flags and issues in escrow. And, I just got a call from a client last Sunday on a deal that was in escrow with City National Bank. City National Bank denied the loan, and we were able to rescue it and save it. Right. And got me to thinking it's like every offer that goes out, every offer that gets made comes with a pre approval letter. Right. It's very rare. Like there's no agent out there that's going to, show property to a client without a pre-approval letter, right? You're not going to accept an offer on your listing, right? I know Ralph and Dom, you guys do some listings and Leslie as well, but you're not going to accept an offer on your listing without a pre-approval letter. And so if everybody has a pre-approval letter, then why is it that like 73% of deals don't close on time? Why is it that like 11% of deals don't close at all, have issues in escrow, right? Um, and it's really, it usually comes down to issues on the lending side, right? It usually comes down to the lender not doing a good job in verifying the client's income and assets. A lot of times, I don't know if anybody's done this, and maybe you could just put it in the chat. If you've had a listing and you've said, please submit proof of funds, pre approval letter, and DU. If you've done that, put that in the chat, put a yes in the chat. I'd love to see that. Um, because that is a big thing, right? I've talked about this before with people, and they're like, "Yeah, we got the DU, and it looked good." And I'm like, "Well, what did you look for?" And they're like, "Oh, well, I don't know. It just said eligible," and I felt like we were good. And so I'm going to teach you guys just some little things that you could look at so that you know how to spot a red flag, right? Whether you're a listing agent or a buyer's agent, right? I talk to a lot of buyers, a lot of agents who are working with buyers, and they all tell me the same thing. Oh, I'm working with clients, but they came with their own lender, right? I'm working with somebody, but they were already pre approved. I'd love to get them to you, Joe, but they already have an approval letter. Well, in addition to the pre approval letter, right, you need to make sure you're talking to that lender. And a lot of times agents tell them to send over the DU, right? Like send over this because I need it for the offer. But how do you know that the client's actually been vetted? How do you know that the lender did their job so that you won't have any issues in escrow, right? And so I'm going to show you some of the little things that you can look at on the DU findings, particularly whether you're a listing agent or a buyer's agent. All of these red flags will help. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Joe Soto. I always joke husband, father, all around good guy who also does mortgages. We lend in all 50 states. So we help clients who are purchasing all over the place. Lots of people doing, bridge loan financing and moving to be closer to kids and grandkids and families. And that's really a lot of what we're seeing. If you're not following me on social, give me a follow. We try to post educational content and stuff out there. Um, right now, I'm training for a marathon. So if you want to get lots of marathon running updates, follow me because there's a lot of running going on in Joe Soto's life right now. But you'll get all the different updates on programs and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm literally going to walk you through what this DU looks like, and I will not bore you with every single line, right? Because it's like I don't know 47 sections that are on here. And so I don't want to waste your time on that, but I'm going to give you some high level things that you can look at. Again, whether you're a listing agent or a buyer's agent, that you can look out for. A lot of agents reach out to us to do cross quals and stuff like that. Like we can do that for you guys if you want somebody to get a second look. But here's the first page, right? So you get this DU and you're like, cool, I got a DU and here it is. It says approve eligible. Awesome. Green means go. If it's red, red means stop. Usually it's red and it says ineligible. So green, you're like, all right, cool. Um, I always tell agents to look at these submission dates, right? If it's a lender that you've never worked with before, and let's say the client said that they got approved in May, and here you are in July, and you ask for the DU, and the DU just says July, you're like, well, why didn't you run it in May? How did you approve them in May without running it through the underwriter findings? Um, So that's a question that you could ask. But approve eligible means good. Ineligible, if it's red, means bad. Green means go. Red means stop. On this first page, really what you want to look at is this identifying information. So, why do deals fall out of escrow? They fall out of escrow most of the time because of this DTI, debt to income, right? This is the number one deal killer in escrow. The number two deal killer is assets, issues with assets, gifts, funds, deposits. That's the number two deal killer. And then the number three deal killer is probably inspections, or you bring your dad to the home inspection and dad kills the deal. But that's a whole nother thing. So you always want to look at this debt ratio. And when you see this 49.67, this is pretty high, right? And clients nowadays are taking it as high as possible. So conventional loans will let you go to a 50% debt to income ratio. FHA and VA will allow you to go to 55%. Okay, that's the max. So this one here, I use this as an example because you could see that this ratio is 49.67. Okay, at 50.01, this approve eligible becomes ineligible. That means cancel Christmas, right? If the DTI goes up, this is where you run into escrows with lenders, and the lender says, oh, we need them to pay off a debt. Oh, they need to put more money down, right? That's usually, oh, we need a seller credit to buy down the interest rate because the DTI goes above 50 and it's now got to come back down below 50. So those are usually what happens. It's, oh, we need you to pay off some debt. Oh, we need you to buy down the rate, or you need to put more money down, right? Those are ways that the lender will bring that debt to income ratio down. And so I'm going to show you some red flags and what you could look at that could affect the DTI. Okay. You could also look at this information here. Like this says loan to value. If, the client wrote an offer saying that they were going to put 50% down and then the DU says they're putting 20% down, like, well, why is that? Why'd you submit an offer with 50% down and the DU says 20% down, right? You want it all to match your offer. Any questions on this? Anybody, if you have any questions on this as I'm going through it, just throw it in the chat. Or if you've run into issues before on something like this, like, hey, I saw one of these and it had this and this, you could definitely throw it in the chat and I will get to everybody's questions as we kind of go through. But this is page one. This is the one. Sometimes banks will send just this one page. And I will tell you that this one page is not enough. Okay. You want to get the whole kit and caboodle. And I'm going to show you why. So page two. Page two is where you look at here and it says value acceptance. So if the lender runs this DU with an address, which is down here, it may tell you if you're eligible to get a property appraisal waiver, right? Usually the appraisal waivers are properties under $1 million. It's very rare that the loan amount is over. I've never seen it actually over $1 million loan amount and you get a waiver on appraisal, even with 40, 50, 60% down. Usually you're still going to need an appraisal, but here's where it would tell you. So there's no lender in the world that says, hey, don't worry, we're going to waive the appraisal. Unless they ran it through here, you can see that it's an appraisal waiver, right? Now there's some clients who are I've got a guy right now, he's putting 40% down. Like he waived the appraisal, he doesn't care. That's a different story. This means an appraisal is not required. So if it says that it's ineligible, it means you have to get an appraisal. Okay, that's what you're going to see. You're also going to see in here red flags, right? So this person had a credit bureau frozen. Sometimes it would tell you the DTI is high. Sometimes it will say, like right here, it says risk profile it meets the guidelines, right? But sometimes it'll say DTI or collections or things like that. And so you could look at that red flag section. Okay. Coming through as we go through, right? It shows employment information. Cool. Yeah, they got a job clearly, right? That's why they're writing an offer on a house. Down here, it shows credit and liabilities. So I wanted to highlight credit and liabilities because that DTI was so tight, right? 49.67. So that DTI was tight, and that's even with this client paying off this debt. So this says evidence of payoff of this debt is required. They have to pay off this U.S. Treasury. That means they owed the IRS $39,000. Okay, that's part of this file in this situation. I will tell you, anytime you see IRS or child support, Ask more questions, guys. Those are two items that will slow down a file, right? You got to get a payoff from the IRS. You got to get a payoff from the state for child support. So anytime you see IRS, US Treasury, make sure you're asking the lender, hey, have you verified that? Where are you at? Are we going to get held up? Same thing with IHHS. If you have a client who has income from IHHS, that's a deal killer as well. Well, not a deal killer. It's a time sponge, right? It takes a long time to get VOEs and stuff from IHHS, but we'll get into that as well. Um, Coming through here. Again, this debt was omitted. So this person was actually doing a bridge loan. Bridge loan doesn't count in their DTI. So they were actually getting a bridge loan. But if you see omitted debt, again, that means the debt doesn't count in that DTI. If the debt doesn't count in the DTI, right? And the DTI was 49.6, like, all right, well, do they know they're paying that off? Like, that's again stuff that you want to ask questions about when you're talking to a lender. And again, doesn't matter if you're on the listing side or the buyer side, right? This is stuff that you want to verify with every client. Going through here, you can see employment information, right? You're not worried about their job and stuff. You just want to make sure that they're employed. So don't worry about the job information. But down here tells you more, right? Where they work, cool. You could see if they're self-employed, right? This borrower is self-employed. I will tell you a lot of the income issues that we see, a lot of the rescue deals that we run into. It's not the W-2 person who works at the school board. It's not the W-2 teacher. It's not the W-2 engineer. It's not the W-2 in and out worker, right? It is usually the person that is self-employed. So whether you're working with the buyer or a seller, right, you want to make sure that that lender has done all of the homework regarding their self-employment, P&Ls, bank statements, assets, liquidity, because that is, if you take income being the number one deal killer, I would say self-employed is probably 75, 80% of that, right? The issues. So anytime you see self-employed, again, ask more questions of the lender, right? Protect your client, protect yourself. It's super, super important. Paul had a question here. So you have eligible findings, but you're still looking for exemption to satisfy the approval. Yeah, Paul. So you do have eligible findings, right? And that's a great question, right? The approval said that the findings say approve eligible based on this DTI being 49.67, right? But let's just say the client says, in this case, right, this IRS balance is $39,000. I don't have $39,000. I was going to put it on a payment plan. Well, the payment plan would have a monthly payment of, let's say, $500 a month. Now that $500 a month is going to count in this DTI. That's going to affect the ability. So this approval findings, Paul, is based on Uncle Sam being paid off. It's based on fly homes being omitted. So if this wasn't fly homes, if this said Visa, that means it's based on the client paying off their Visa account. If they don't pay off the Visa account, that DTI is going to go up. And above 50, cancel Christmas, right? It's over. So even though it says eligible, you have to make sure that it's accurate, because all this information is really can be manipulated by the lender. Like it can. That's why, as I said in the beginning, every person submits an offer with the pre-approval letter. Why do we have fallout? Because the lender doesn't do a good job in verifying these things. They don't cross their T's and dot their I's. So that's an example of how that works. Does that answer your question, Paul? Hopefully that does. So then coming down here, when you just take a quick glance at the income, they have other income, they have their base pay, and then you have the self-employment income, right? And again, this is the part where you could have issues, right? Did the lender verify the tax returns 1 year or 2 years? Did the lender get a profit and loss, right? How much, if this is cut, let's say the underwriter looks at it and cuts this income from 771 to $500. Now that DTI goes above 50 and we're in trouble, right? So anytime that DTI is tight, you got to be very, 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 very careful. But that's something that you would see right here, right? Like, okay, looking at it. The other thing, if you're like, most people don't like to look at all of this stuff. So I'm going to give you the easy hack. This is the first easy hack when you're looking at this. When you're looking at income and the lender sends this over to you, you want to be on the lookout for round numbers. Round numbers are a giant, huge, massive red flag. Okay. So if you get this and it says other income, $1,200, base employment, $4,500, self-employment income, $700, round numbers. Any round numbers are a problem because as you can see here, nobody makes a round number income, right? Especially if you're self-employed. Your income's not exactly $7,000 a month or $700 a month. It's $771.75. Your base pay is never $4,000 a month, right? So when the lender puts in round numbers in here, it's because they're going based off of just what the client told them, right? How much do you make per month? I make about $5,000 a month. Okay. How much does your wife make? She makes about 1,200. Okay. How much does your size business make? Like 700. Okay. So round numbers are a huge red flag. If you see a round number in here, odds are that the lender did not verify the income. It's like 99.9% that they did not verify the income. So easy hack. If you don't remember anything else, remember that. Cool. Then coming down to assets. Again, this here is telling you that we only need 1 year of tax returns, but then assets, right? Like this here shows we verified assets of $151,000. If you get an offer submitted and the client submits the offer, I don't know, this happens sometimes, but the agents will submit an offer and the client will send over $800,000 of assets. But the lender's only verified 151. Okay. Well, to me, that's 1 + 1 = 3. Why is that? Right? Like, where is there a disconnect? Because the lender should want to put in all assets in here. More assets makes this look stronger. So I would ask the lender, hey, how much assets did you verify from this client? Oh, okay. Well, we went in, we verified Chase, Schwab, B of A. They got about 150 grand. Cool. Well, hey, Mr. Realtor. Hey, Ralph. I noticed when you submitted the offer for Dominic, you sent me over a Chase statement that had $600,000 in it. But I talked to Joe, the lender, and he said they have $150,000. So, like, where'd the extra 500 or 450K come from? Right? Find out that information. Again, big red flag. The other big red flag, just like I told you on income, guys, assets. If this is a round number, this is a problem. They have exactly $150,000. No, they don't. They have exactly 75, 25, 8, 10. Any round number is bad. Usually means that the lender just had a conversation with them. They said, how much do you have in your checking account? I got like 10 grand. How much do you have in your savings account? Oh, I got like 20, right? Round numbers, bad, bad, bad. So that's something that you want to look out for. So there's two more big, quick little tips, right? Verifying the accurate assets and round numbers are big. Property information, again, you don't really need anything on here. It's just saying that there's a regular appraisal that's going to be required on the house. Over here, it shows you credit scores. So it says you when the credit score was, what credit report was pulled for the client. So anything that's super old, you may want to ask for a new credit report, right? If this was, I usually say within 3 or 4 months, you're usually okay. If it's a year ago, you want to be careful, right? Maybe ask the lender to rerun the credit. But that's the date that you want to look for on that. Credit scores, again, you can see the scores, they're accurate. What the qualifying score is, cool. Down here, it gives you that income breakdown that I told you about earlier. Again, No round numbers. Nobody makes exactly 5 grand a month. Nobody makes exactly 10 grand a month. It's always dollars and cents. So look out for that. Same thing with assets. You'll see here. Look at their Chase account, 1697. Wells, 15,346. They're getting a bridge loan for 155. They have a checking account, 1,093.86. No round numbers. Okay. That's the biggest thing is no round numbers. Any questions about income or assets? Anything else come up? If there's anything else, just throw it in the chat like Mr. Paul did. Um, and then at the end of this, you're looking for uh, all the information, right? It has the borrower's name on it. That's cool. Here's the mortgage info. And so this is another big thing for agents to look out for. Okay. This is super important because, again, we talked about that DTI, right? And that debt to income and how that's the deal killer. So loan amount, down payment, cool. That doesn't really, yeah, that's fine. You want to make sure, again, that the income is broken out. You're looking for round numbers. Those are an issue. But here's the big part of the payment. Again, and this is stuff that affects this up here. Whoops, this debt to income ratio. Okay. Is the monthly payment. So a lot of times, if you have lenders from out of state or lenders from out of area, they'll put taxes in here and they'll use whatever's on Zillow. Well, Leslie's been in her house for 40 years and her current taxes are $1,800 a year. That's not accurate, right? This property was in Florida. That's why these are so low. Um, that's not accurate. Same thing if you have a property that has Mello-Roos or special assessments and you look in here and the lender, the DTI is 49%, but the lender did not factor in the Mello-Roos or special assessments. They did not factor in the solar that they're going to inherit, right? Deal killers. Those are things that are going to raise the DTI. You want to make sure you're asking about it. Same thing, HOA dues, right? Lender ran DU as a single family, and now they're making an offer on a condo. Oh shoot, let's make sure this works, right? If this HOA is $67 here, but the client found a property and the HOA is $200, guess what? Now my debt goes up. My debt to income ratio goes from 49.67. It goes above 50. So this is a huge piece of the puzzle is the monthly payment, specifically for condos, specifically for taxes, and for special assessments, right? We've seen a lot more expensive insurance too. So if you have a property in a high fire area, I don't know if you have flood zones out in Hawaii. Leslie, you probably do. But flood insurance, right? Like make sure that's factored in because sometimes you'll run into that where, oh, we have the insurance, but we didn't factor in the 5 grand a year of flood. We didn't factor in the 3 grand a year of, the fire insurance being higher because it's a high fire area. Really important, especially when that DTI is tight, right? That's a big piece of the puzzle. And so here it shows you the payments and how the DTI is collected. Any questions on payment and how that works? Big time on the flood insurance. Yeah, I've done some deals out in Hawaii. That flood insurance is not cheap. Not cheap. So that's the big one on there. And then the last page always looks like this. It says approve eligible, right? But again, you want to make sure that the information is accurate because it's all data entry, right? It's all what the lender puts in order to get you, approve eligible, right? So just to kind of recap really quick, approve eligible is good, but you want to keep a look at DTI, right? That's the deal killer most of the time. And the things that affect the DTI are really going to be income. We're looking for round numbers on income. We're looking for self-employment to make sure that the lenders verify the tax returns. Are they on extension? Are they currently being paid? What is the deal? Is there on tax returns, if they file 2025, have they paid what was due? Right? It was their money due to the Uncle Sam. Because that's why this person had an IRS debt. Um, so you want to make sure you look at that. Income, assets, we talked about credit report, making sure that it's not super old, and then the payment, right? Really making sure hazard, taxes, Melrose, HOA, especially when you know that DTI is tight because there's no wiggle room. There's literally like if this client, their insurance shows 376 a month, if it were to come in at 400, my DTI goes up. And then I'm coming to the client going, well, you got to put some more money down in order to get your DTI because your insurance came in too low, too high. Right. So that's the kicker on there. Um, and that's all we got. That was all the basics that I wanted to give you guys. I'm going to send you all an email, just a little recap of the bullet points, right? Because we went over a lot of information. I want to give you guys the bullet points. And as always, we're here to give second opinions, right? If you're working with the lender and you're somebody you don't know and you're not getting the warm and fuzzies, or you get a DU from them and you don't like it, or even worse, you talk to a bank and the bank doesn't want to send you a DU, right? Like you're basically going without any safety net when they don't give you that information. You're just trusting the guy at the bank that he did his job or she did her job. So if you need a second opinion, if you have any clients right now that you're working with, we've got great programs for self-employed. We've got a new grant program or a new down payment assistance program for FHA, where we're actually giving 3.5% down on FHA loans, and we have a 5% down on FHA loans. So great, great, great programs. But we'll make sure that the deal's going to close. All right, that's the name of the game, making sure that it's going to close. So, if anybody has any other questions, you can fire in there. That pretty much wraps it up. We're finished a little bit early. Sharon asked regarding a HELOC loan, what is the LTV equity requirement? So we have HELOCs that will go to 90% of the value, appraised value of the house, Sharon. So 90% on owner occupied. If it's non-owner occupied, it's 75%, but we'll go pretty high on there on that. Anybody else throw out some questions? Good to see some familiar faces on here. All right. Well, if nobody's got any questions, I'll give you guys back a little bit of time. I appreciate you all. I'm here for you. I want to be a resource for you. I want to help you win. Market's tough. We're all fighting the fight. So I appreciate you all. And I know it's market is what it is, right? But we're out there just trying to help as many people as we can. So love y'all. God bless. Have a great day. Bye.